Becky here. Welcome to my channel. Happy Canada Day. This is the first of 5 videos I have planned in celebration of my 5th year doing YouTube videos. It is hard to believe it has been 5 years already. It does not feel like it has been that long, and sometimes it feels like it's been forever. It's a lot of work and a lot goes into doing this channel, but it has been fun and I have learned a lot of things along the way, and hopefully we'll learn more in the future for as long as this chapter of my life goes on for. I wasn't sure how I wanted to mark or celebrate my 5th anniversary, but I decided I wanted to do 5 vlogs because I am the kind of person who doesn't have time to do all that reading and stuff, and why not pile all of that on? So a couple of these videos will be sit down videos and a couple will be vlogs. Because I am a Canadian booktuber, I wanted to read Canadian books and have this come up for Canada Day. July 1st is not my official anniversary date, but the anniversary is in July. And this first video, of course, is vlog style of me reading 5 Canadian authors. I also wanted to take a moment here at the beginning of this vlog to talk a little bit about being Canadian and how I feel about that now, after I've learned a lot in the last especially 5 years, as well as acknowledging the land that we are on. I will start off with the land acknowledgement from what I found online. If you don't know, I live in the province of Alberta, so there is a land acknowledgement from Alberta itself, as well as the specific place I live, which is in Fort McMurray. And I will link these websites down below as well, and you can go check and see what it says there for further information. So in Alberta, we acknowledge the traditional lands and territories of the Indigenous peoples who have lived on these lands and have taken care of them since time immemorial. What became known as the province of Alberta in 1905 is also the traditional and ancestral home to many Indigenous peoples, and for that, we are honored to have shared this land with them since Treaties 6, 7, and 8 were entered into. Alberta is also the historical Northwest Métis homeland, which includes 5 territories. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, and for those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. And then for Fort McMurray, I found the Treaty 8 land acknowledgement. With gratitude, we acknowledge this land is Treaty 8 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Dene, and the unceded territory of the Métis people. Do with that as you will, whether you believe the government of Canada is, or the government of Alberta is doing anything to actually make reconciliation with the Indigenous people or not. I just wanted to make that personal acknowledgement in my video. I've always been very proud to be Canadian and grew up believing that we are a very multicultural country that is very welcoming to other people. We're known to be very polite and we say sorry about everything apparently, and are just very welcoming of all peoples and cultures here, and I always thought that was really cool. And I grew up very ignorant of the things that have been done, not just in Canada, but in the West, in North America in general. And when it comes to history, we do social studies here in Canada and learn things like about World War I and II and events way in the past. We learned a lot about ancient Egypt. I don't remember learning anything about the residential schools. You always hear the stories about Christopher Columbus coming over and discovering North America. And we even have a province in Canada called Newfoundland. So you hear these stories about Canada being discovered by people from the other side of the world, but you never hear about the atrocities that happened because of that discovery to the people who were already living here. Like I said, the atrocities of the residential schools. I never knew any of that at all. And my family, on my father's mother's side of the family, is Métis. So there is that history there. And I knew none of it besides that I was 1/16 Native or something like that. I don't know. But I find it even more sad that I knew nothing about Canada's true history, the good and the bad and the ugly, all of it having Métis ancestors. I know that you cannot judge a book by its cover, but I have always grown up identifying as a white person and been seen as white and had privileges that come with being white. And I was never taught about my Métis heritage or Indigenous heritage at all. I know my grandmother was very proud of that stuff, but it was just not something we talked about. But hopefully I will find the time to be able to dive more into what that looks like for me. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. My brain is all over the place. I'm sorry. What I'm saying is I have never grown up identifying as an Indigenous person or Métis, but I knew that I was Métis. But it is so far back, and I am so clearly white, it's never affected my day-to-day life, especially growing up. I can't tell you how many people have asked if I'm Italian. I'm like, no, not at all. So I've always just identified as white. But I just wanted to acknowledge that in this Canadian vlog here, that it's awkward now in the last about 3 Canada Days. I've always been so proud to be Canadian and been like, yes, happy Canada Day, happy birthday Canada, I love you. It's amazing, I'm so thankful I live here. And I am so thankful that I live here. And I'm very thankful to be in Canada in the 20th and 21st century. And I'm so thankful to live in a place that has free healthcare. Thank you, Jesus. I am proud to be Canadian and to live in Canada, but also wrestling with that history of the terrible things that have happened. There is that wrestling part of it. So I didn't just want to come on here and be like, happy Canada Day, here's some amazing, hopefully amazing, Canadian books and authors, and I'm so proud to be Canadian, and not acknowledge the land acknowledgement and the Indigenous people who originally lived here and claimed this as their land that my ancestors, or part of my ancestors, took over. That's all I wanted to say for this opening part of the vlog. You're going to see the intro, and we're going to jump into the Canadian reads now. And I hope you like this vlog, and I will see you with the other 4 vlogs for my anniversary celebration. So I am 84 pages into Meet Me at the Lake, and I just wanted to talk about how Carly Fortune is Canadian, and this story takes place in Toronto and at Lake Muskoka, I believe it's called. And I've never been there. I've been to Toronto when I was a very young child, but not at a time when I could like remember anything. But the second main character in this, the guy, the love interest, he is from Toronto as well, but has moved to BC, and he was just talking about riding around the seawall at Stanley Park. And I was just like, I know that. I know Stanley Park. I know the beauty of BC. And I've never been to Ontario and the lakes and everything there, but I can only imagine how beautiful they are. But it's fun to read books that take place in Canada, but they're all in Ontario, Toronto, and maybe BC. Not very many in Alberta, but it's still cool, and Stanley Park was mentioned, and I've been there lots. So it's always fun to read books that take place where you're from. So I am a third or so of the way through Meet Me at the Lake, and I'm enjoying it so far. I just love the pink, and I got new bookmarks from Emily Cromwell, and they are dogs reading. This is just adorable. So visually, I'm enjoying this book every time I pick it up. This is a story of Fern, whose mom owns a resort in Northern Ontario. And Fern doesn't want to run the resort. We're skipping between 2 timelines, 10 years apart. She's 22 in the past timeline, 32 in the current timeline. We find out right away that her mom has passed away, and that is why she is back at the resort in this tiny little town. Normally she is living in Toronto. She went to Toronto for college for 4 years and absolutely fell in love with the city and wanted to stay living in the city. She's like, I'm a city kid now, even though she grew up in the country. Like, living in a small town where your mom owns the resort, she was known by everybody, and there was some kind of blow up that happened when she was a teenager, just I think before heading off to college, and we're not really sure what that was that happened, what the blow up was all about. She confronted her mom about something. She had like a freak out inside the resort. Anyways, now her mom has passed away and she's back. She was running a coffee shop in Toronto in the city and doing really well at it, succeeding, and her dream is to open up her own coffee shop. And there was a guy that she met 10 years ago when she was in Toronto, and it was just a few days before she was supposed to go back home, and kind of like had this whirlwind 1-day romance kind of thing. She was already dating somebody and he was dating somebody, and now we're 10 years later and he is a consultant person. He went to the resort last year and spoke to her mom and agreed to help out because I guess the resort isn't doing as well as it has in the past, and he was going to help with how to save money and maybe generate a few different income streams from the property if you want to sell the property, all these things. He shows up at the resort and Fern is there. His name is Will, and she goes to check him in because she's doing all the different little jobs around the resort to just familiarize herself with it again and the staff and everything. And she's like, hi, I need your name to check you in, and then sees him and is like, oh, this is the guy that ghosted me 10 years ago. So we're getting their story now in the present time, and he's like, your mom asked me to come and consult this year, and she's like, I don't want to work with you, I can't trust you, my heart was broken, all this stuff. And then we get the day that they spent together 10 years ago, and I'm enjoying enjoying it. I like the banter. I like romance stories like this. It's not a ton of banter, but there's a little bit of banter there. Her ex-boyfriend is working at the lake still. He is like the manager there. He loves it. He grew up on the lake just like she did, and it's more his dream to run it than it is her dream. And there's a scene between her and Jamie, is her ex-boyfriend, and Will, as Will is being shown to his cabin. No, she runs away. Like, she's like stressed out, freaking out, like, how did you come back into my life all of a sudden at like the worst time possible? Her mom died like 3 weeks ago or something, and she goes to run away, and Will chases her, and then Jamie chases and is like, are you okay, Fern? She falls and scuffs her knee in the gravel, and you know, there's kind of this little bit of peacocking going on between Jamie and Will, and then that's it. We don't hear from Jamie again so far. I thought we'd get a little bit more scenes of Jamie and Will and Fern and like the peacocking. I don't think I want to see Jamie like trying to win her back. More just like, I'm being protective of her because I've grown up with her. She's, I want to say like a sister, but they did date, but like she's family to me. Despite it not working out romantically, she's still like a huge part of my life, and I still really care about her. And more like the big brother, protective. I can tell that she doesn't like you. You've hurt her somehow, and I'm protecting her. I was hoping for a little bit more of that. I know people don't really like that in their stories. Women can stand up for themselves, and they don't need a guy to do it for them. And she's an adult. She can make her own decisions. All this stuff. I understand that, like feminism and everything. I get it. But as long as the main female character is not a doormat, as long as she's standing up for herself and is saying like, I'm capable of making this decision. I'm just gonna keep saying the peacocking scenes with the two guys trying to like one up each other, or the one guy's being more protective of her. It can lead to some funny comedic scenes. So I thought we'd get more of that, but we really haven't, just that first scene. And Will and Jamie didn't even really interact. It was more Jamie just like ignored Will completely and just focused all of his attention on Fern, and vice versa. That's it so far. So I was just skimming past the first sex scene in this book, and this year I have committed to sharing in secular romance books, or any books that involve sex, I guess, but specifically romance books for those who are squeamish or just don't want to read about sex or prefer closed door, fade to black scenes. I wanted to talk about that in the books that I'm reading, and it's hard to have like a spice level because everyone's idea of what is spicy is different. So obviously I stay away from books that are like smut, that are basically just pornography, and mostly read, when it comes to romance, it's mostly just contemporary romance books. But I got to page 170, which is this far into the book, with this much left, before the first actual sex scene happens. There is some kissing and stuff before that. There's a little bit of a heavy kissing scene in it, but it's not very long at all and gets cut off like right away. But this is the first like actual sex scene, and it's on page. And it started on page 172, and I read to 179. I skimmed these pages here. So it is more than halfway through the book that you have your first sex scene, and it is explicit on page. But you can just skim through it. There's nothing really important there, except for the last little bit here. It just kind of talks about the emotional impact it had on Fern, our main character. So that's it. That's all I wanted to share for now. I'm still enjoying my read. I will update when I am finally finished this book. Today is currently April 20th. I was on Bree's reading sprints today, and somebody said like happy 420, and then somebody mentioned that happy palindrome day because today's date is 4/20/2024. So it's read the same way forwards and backwards. So that's cool. And come July, when this vlog comes out, it's going to be long days. The sun doesn't set till like almost midnight. But right now, it's about 8:30 p.m. and look at the sun on me. This is so exciting. The sun is setting between 8:30 and 9 right now, and it's not even May yet, and I just live for the long days. My car is very dirty, but you can see the sun is just setting over there. I live for this time of year with the days growing longer, even when it's hot and miserable out. Anyways, I literally just finished Meet Me on the Lake. It takes place in Toronto and Muskoka, which is a few hours, I think, north of Toronto. That is East Coast. That is very far away from me. I loved it. You know, people kind of like scoff at epilogues in romance books because it's usually like the couple finally get together and they're like, I love you so much, and then the book ends and then there's an epilogue and it's like, we got married and had a baby. And that's fine. Like, it's a sweet ending. Epilogues like that don't bother me. What was weird about this one is the last chapter read exactly like the perfect epilogue. It ended so nice. And I was like, that's beautiful. And then you flip the page and there's a little epilogue at the end. I understand this epilogue. I get it. It's a sweet little nod to the main character's relationship with her mother. So that is sweet. So I'll forgive it for that. Let's talk about sex and relationships for a minute as grown-ups in consenting relationships. Future editing Becky here. I just want to jump in here and say that I talked for 20 minutes giving my little sex ed TED talk. I'm cutting that out of this vlog because this vlog is very long already. So I'm going to take that part out, but I'm going to do another little mini video of my sex ed TED talk that I did. And I will share that probably in a couple of the Discord servers that I am a part of. And for now, it will just be an unlisted video. But please stay tuned to see that if you see it come up on one of the Discord channels that I am on. So yeah, check that out. And thanks for watching. And I was like, yes, 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 yes. It's so true. Thank you, Will. I agree. I don't know how this vlog turned into a sex ed talk with Becky, but there was also a conversation here I talked about in my last clip about the sex scene, and I got a chart. I made a Christian Spice chart that'll pop up and you can let me know what you think about it. But right after that sex scene, it's like the next morning or something like that, and they're lying in bed and he's got tattoos all over his body. Like, she didn't even know this. She knew he had a tattoo. I think from the description it's like here, but he takes off his shirt and he's covered in tattoos, and she's like, whoa, he's got some tattoos. Like, he's got a lot more ink on his body, and he is a art major, so she's always just like, I'm admiring your art. And he has a name on his side tattoo there, Sophia, a girl's name, of course, and she's like jealous of it, right? But she's like, I don't want to bring it up that he's got a girl's name on him because that's none of my business. We had a 10-year gap, and in my mind I was like, that's this person's name. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but I'm like, it's obviously so-and-so's name. We'll say like a grandmother or something. Somebody, you don't need to be jealous of your boyfriend or love interest having a girl's name on his body because it's a family member. But I was thinking about that afterwards because I'm like, I'm not emotionally connected to Will. I don't have 10 years of pining after this guy and being absolutely devastated when he ghosted me and having all these mixed emotions and feelings. So it's easy for me on the outside looking in to be like, it's obviously this person's name. And I didn't just have sex with him and get all mixed up with all the emotions with the sex and the whole past and all the baggage and everything. So it's easy for me. So I'm like, we need to give characters a little more grace when we're always like, it's so obvious, blah, 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 in whatever book you're reading. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm looking at this from the outside and I don't have that entanglement. Anyways, they're lying in bed and she like draws her finger over the name or whatever. And he's not saying anything. And then she's just kind of like, you have a lot of tattoos. And he's like, yes, I do. And she's kind of like this girl's tattoo, and he's like, are you jealous? And the whole conversation they had in that moment, I was like, that is 100% me. Fern was me. I was Fern in that moment. I was like, if I was in her position in that exact same scenario, that's exactly how I would have brought up that conversation and been like, who is this girl? Why is her name tattooed to your body? Do I need to be jealous? I am jealous. I like related to her so hard in that very moment. I was like, literally, Carly was like, this is how Becky would have this conversation. So I enjoyed that. So I'm really glad my friend Erica gave me this book to read, and she said the ending wasn't as good as the beginning. I liked the book all the way through. I did. I liked it. I liked that it was in Canada representation. I'm absolutely in love with this cover, and I'm gonna go put it back up on my bookshelf. That's pink and has all the pink out right now. I'm done. I'm excited. This marks off my first book in this Canadian vlog that I'm doing. This is like a high 4. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Erica, for lending it to me, giving it to me. Thank you, Erica, for the book. And I will see you with my next Canadian read. Bye! I hold at the library for I Only Read Murder. The audiobook has just come in, and I just happen to not be listening to any audiobooks at the moment. So I am diving into I Only Read Murder. I just checked, and it is by Ian and Will Ferguson, and they live in BC, it looks like. He lives in Victoria, so that's on the island in BC. Will lives in Calgary, which is in Alberta, the province I live in, so that's cool. I'm from both BC and Alberta, kinda. It's weird when people are like, where are you from? I was born in Alberta and lived there until I was about 4. Moved to BC with my mom from the ages of 4 to 12, almost 13. Moved back in with my dad in Alberta between the ages of 13 and 17. Moved back in with my mom in BC between the ages of 17 and 19. Moved back to Alberta from the age of 19 to now. So I have lived in Alberta a lot longer than I have lived in BC, but my growing up years until I was a teenager were in BC, and I've always gone back and forth because of having family in both. I jokingly say that I am an oil-loving hippie because Alberta, we love our oil here, and BC is very liberal, more Greenpeace liberal. So I am an oil-loving hippie. I land somewhere in between those two. Wickedly funny and full of surprising twists. So let's see. I'm excited to jump in this one. It looks fairly short. It's just over 300 pages. I got the audiobook and I'm going grocery shopping right now. Today is May 20th, so the kids go back to school tomorrow and I need to pick up groceries for them to feed them. It's like the biggest thing you're going to do as a parent is feed your children all the time. Like, that's all they want is food. It's unbelievable. Let's go shopping. Let's read about murder. Let's go. This is not really a great angle, is it? I don't have my tripod on me, but let's just do this quick update anyways. I have started I Only Read Murder, and they have both won prizes or have been nominated at least for like being funny, I guess, as writers. Will Ferguson is a 3-time winner of the Leacock Medal of Humor. I have scoffed once. I guess scoff could sound bad, but I've scoffed. I gave like a snort once a few pages ago. I'm on page 92 now, but it's not as funny as I was hoping it would be. And I am somebody who does laugh at books, and my humor, it's not super sophisticated or anything. I do find things funny, and I do laugh at books like Andy Weir with The Martian and Project Hail Mary and stuff. I like his books. Spy Family I find funny. I enjoy stand-up comedy as long as it's not too crude or a lot of swearing. It's just not my type of humor. But I do enjoy humor and I do laugh at a lot of things, but this has just been okay. The main character was an actress in a popular show 15 years ago and now she's kind of like a has-been and wants to do like a resurgence of this show or whatever. She's an unlikable character. It's not funny though. She's just annoying and entitled and narcissistic. She goes to this little town and is trying out for this play because she wants to get back with her husband. It's been 15 years since they've been together and he is like, it's time for a divorce. And she's like, no, I love you. We need to be together, even though they haven't talked in 15 years. He opened up a theater in this tiny town and someone is like, why don't you try out for one of the parts in this play and then you can work closely with him and like try and win him back over. And this whole scenario with them at the theater trying out for these parts, it feels very much like it's supposed to be a quirky, cute little small town with very much like the Gilmore Girls Stars Hollow vibes, where the town itself is a character. It feels like it's trying to do that and it's failing. It's called Happy Rock and the name of the bookstore is I Only Read Murder, and I'm just not feeling it yet. I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. I was really hoping it'd be more funny. There's another book out after this I know I've seen on the shelves, but I held off buying it because I haven't read this one yet. And the front says it's wickedly funny and full of surprising twists. Maybe I'm not smart enough for this kind of humor. I don't know, but so far it's just okay. That's all I have to say for now. Hopefully it gets better. So I am a little bit more than 50% of the way through I Only Read Murder, and the murder has happened now. The book starts with you reading the part about the murder, and then it jumps back 6 weeks, and you're kind of counting up to it. It's not like every day or every week. It does jump quite a bit because there is a play in this town called A Death of Dickens or something, and our main character Miranda is playing a very small like bit part. She has one line and she's the first victim to die in this play, and you know that somebody else dies for real, and then you do learn who it is pretty early on. So who dies isn't the mystery, it's who killed her. Miranda's the main character, and I was telling you about how she's kind of narcissistic and she's made to be an unlikable character. I'm just annoyed with her, and she's coming off as kind of stupid, I'll be honest. Oh, peaches. She's at this B&B, B's B&B, and I kind of laughed because my name is Becky, so I was like, if I open up a B&B, that's what I'm going to call it, B's B&B. Anyways, she's just coming off as really annoying and kind of dumb. Miranda is very entitled, and she goes to this B&B and decides to rent a room there because, like I said, she wants to stay in town to get back with her husband and win him back. And the owner of the B&B, B, walks her around and shows her all the different rooms, And Miranda's like, I'll take this one. And B is like, this is my room. And she's like, thanks, I'll bring my stuff up and whatever. And the owner's like, sure, because she's a huge fan of Miranda when she was an actress in this show 15 years ago called Pastor Fran Investigates. She was a youth pastor or something that solved crimes. I don't know. But the B&B, it's a B&B and just offers breakfast. Bed and breakfast, that's it. And she's like, I want to order this for lunch. Some kind of fish. It can be salmon or trout. I don't really care as long as it's fresh. And B is like, we only serve breakfast here. And she's like, well, call it brunch and we'll split the difference kind of thing. And Miranda's broke. So she's like, just being ignorant about not having the money and just kind of thinks like money will come from somewhere. And B just loves her, like, is a huge fan of her character, Pastor Fran. And it's kind of like, well, you can stay here for free and we'll take it as like publicity kind of idea. But then Miranda's leaving all her dirty clothes just in a pile on the floor. And is like, okay, B, those need to get cleaned. Like, it's getting kind of bad. I really need my clothes cleaned. And B is like, we don't do laundry here. Like, you're in charge of your own laundry. And Miranda's just expecting all this stuff. And she's making all these long distance phone calls from B's phone in the parlor of the B&B on B's dime. And just keeps calling her ex-assistant guy long distance. And it's just like, I don't care. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Her cell phone, she stopped paying the bill. So she was kind of like, why am I not getting any reception? And her assistant person is like, because you didn't pay your bill, so you don't get reception anymore. Anyways, it's supposed to be funny. This book is supposed to be funny, but I'm just annoyed with her. I'm not finding it funny or charming in any way whatsoever. I'm just like, you're kind of ignorant and I don't know, like, she's not demanding that people do this stuff. She's supposed to be like, I keep reminding B to do my laundry. And I'm being so patient about it and understanding. But I'm like, B doesn't do your laundry. Like, you don't even acknowledge that. You're just like expecting her to do it, but not understanding that she doesn't do it. I'm going to keep listening because I paid for this book and I was really, really hoping to like this book. So anyways, I am working on a cross stitch, cuddled up with my dog who is shedding like crazy. So I'm probably going to have like crazy allergies after this, and continue listening. And I will check in probably at the end of the book because there's really nothing to talk about right now. We're just got to the point where the lady was murdered and trying to figure out now who did it. And it's a classic mystery of everyone has motive kind of thing. So I finished this. I could have finished it in one day, but I finished it in 2. And I ended up listening to the entire thing. I think I might have read like 3 pages of this. And I am disappointed. This was not funny. This was very much your typical murder mystery. Somebody dies. Everyone has motive. Everyone had opportunity. The main character that you're following is the most likely suspect, and she has to figure out who did it so that her or her husband don't get convicted of a murder that they did not commit. Very typical whodunit. I was bored. I didn't like the main character. She was just too narcissistic and just acted way too ignorant of the people around her and what they were saying directly to her. She just felt so entitled and it was annoying. It was not wickedly funny and full of surprising twists. I did not guess who had committed the murder, but I also wasn't trying to, so I don't know if I would have or not. But I was just annoyed and kind of bored. The narration wasn't the best, like I was saying. It was tolerable enough for me to listen to it, but it wasn't great. Yeah, that's upsetting. One of the reasons why I bought this book was because I sent my daughter downstairs to look for a book for me, I think, for a buzzword or something. I can't remember exactly why I was looking for a book, but I sent her down here to look for something, and she came upstairs and she said, all your books are about murder. She's like, I can't find a book with whatever in the title. Everything I looked at, I picked it up and I looked at the back and they're all about murder. So then I saw this online saying I only read murder, and I jokingly said to her, I should buy this, and then I ended up buying it because it sounded funny or interesting or whatever, and it wasn't. So yeah, that's upsetting. I don't even know what to talk about. If I told you what this was about. Miranda Abbott is the main character, and she is going back to a small town of Happy Rock because she wants to get back together with her husband who has summoned her back there. And they're just kind of like, it's been 15 years, this isn't working, let's get divorced. And then she signs the wrong name to the paperwork, and he's just kind of like, with barely any conversation between each other whatsoever, they're kind of like, well, maybe we can make it work out. And there's more stories after this one. I know the second one I think has been released. I never picked it up because I wanted to read this one first, because what if I didn't like it, right? So I'm glad I didn't pick up the second one. I don't really want to keep talking about this one. There just wasn't funny like it said it would be, and it wasn't great. So I'm going to move on to my other Canadian reads now because I need something else to read. So I'm in my van. All the windows are rolled up and the van is off and it's hot in here, so I'm gonna do this very quickly. I need to go pick up my kids from their youth group anyways. So I have been sick the past couple of days, feeling like crap, looking like crap, not wanting to do any filming whatsoever. I am currently reading 3 Canadian books to try and get this vlog up on time for Canada Day. And today I was just sitting here at the river and reading Ducks, which is a graphic novel by Kate Beaton. And I love the foiling. The cover looks like this, and my dogs jumped all over it and like destroyed it, so that's awesome. Thank you. It is a graphic novel. I tried reading it yesterday with the dogs. I'll have some footage of them playing, and they got it so covered in mud, so that's great. But at least it's getting read and it's having fun on its journeys. So I've just read to page, this is such a chonker, 42. So I'm only this far in right now, and it's good so far. I don't know anything about Cape Breton or anything east. I know a lot about Fort McMurray though, which is where she goes to make all the money. This is like 2005 when we were in the middle of, I was like just graduating. I wasn't here. I was still in BC, like didn't know Fort McMurray at all. But there was a huge boom in 2005, and yeah, you can make tons of money here. People were renting out like one room in a house, not a 1-bedroom house, one room in a house shared with other people for like $1,000 a month. It was crazy. Peaches has way too much room back there because she is soaking went for a swim, and the leash she's wearing is super long. We bought a 100-foot cable cord leash thing for them to be able to go outside. I am also reading Still Life by Louise Penny, and she is an author from Quebec, another more eastern province from me. And my husband's family is from Quebec, so that's cool, but I've only been there once in my life. And the other book I am reading is From the Ashes, which is a memoir from a Métis man who grew up in Ontario, Toronto, and the hard life of drugs, alcohol, abuse, abandonment, all those things. And I'm almost in the book. I have just over an hour left, so I think we're getting to like the good stuff now, hopefully. Yeah, that one's a really tough read, but I will share more about that when I have the book in front of me. So that's my Canadian vlog update right now. It's going fine. It's just been endless amounts of rain here for 2 weeks straight, which is unusual to get that much rain for that many days in a row. We very desperately needed it, but it's been hard to go out and do anything and have any fun. So that sucks, but hopefully I'm feeling better soon. And today is June 11th. So I have a couple of weeks before this vlog needs to be out, but I want to be ahead of schedule. And I am behind in life in everything, and it's very stressful. So I am reading Still Life by Louise Penny. I have been the worst vlogger ever when it comes to this Canadian Reads vlog. I was doing so well with the first book and then kind of just gave up on it, honestly. No reflection of whether or not I'm liking the books. I've just not been in a vlogging mind space, I guess. Louise Penny is a author from Quebec, and so her main characters and stuff are French, but it is written in English. I think she writes it in English. I don't think it's translated. So there are some French words in it, but it's not too hard to understand. It would be nice if I could get an audiobook version of this so I could hear the French words, but I'll just have to get my husband or children to tell me how to pronounce some of the words. And I'm on page 251, and I'm on chapter 10. And it took me like 50 pages to get into chapter 3. And one of the chapters was like 40 pages long. Louise Penny doesn't know how to write a short chapter. This is the very typical murder mystery detective story. Our main detective here, his name is Armand Gamache, as best as I can tell with the pronunciation. And this series takes place in a small town called Three Pines, and there was a murder at the beginning of the book. And it's kind of interesting because usually with a murder mystery or like a cozy mystery, you don't really know the victim. In a cozy mystery, usually it's somebody that is like the bad guy. Somebody you don't know, they get stumbled upon. I don't read a ton of cozy mysteries, but usually there's some kind of setting like a bakery. So, you know, the main character works in the bakery and one of the customers is really rude to her and just horrible, and then the next day he shows up dead. So you don't really like the character or anything. But in this, we actually got to know this character a little bit in the first chapter, which was, again, they're quite long chapters. And then she dies in the second chapter. So you're like, yeah, the first chapter is 30, or goes up to page 30. I don't know if it's exactly 30 pages. It starts on page 1. So yeah, it's interesting that you get to like know and care about the character. Normally you don't care about them, right? Within that first 30 pages, we weren't super, or I wasn't anyways, super attached to our main character, Jane. It's not like this huge loss or anything, but we do get to know her and see why her death is a loss, and we can't think of anyone who would want to see her dead. And she's also an elderly character, and just like that beloved kind of grandmother type character. There's also a map of Three Pines in here, which I thought was pretty cool, if I can get the right lighting. That was kind of cool that they showed a map in here. So of course there's a lot of talk about Quebec and Montreal, especially as like the big city. So those places are real places in Canada, and I have been there. So that's exciting. This is somewhere I've been, but Three Pines is a fictional place. I'm not even telling you about the story. It's good, but it's slow. It's more character driven, not very action heavy. There could be something that comes at the end here, of course. Like usually there's the climax, right? It kind of happens in this area right near the end. But I read a lot of Michael Connelly and his detective series with Bosch. And, you know, there's always that scene of the good guys and the bad guys in like a shootout kind of thing situation. And your life is in danger and there's a car chase or a foot chase of some kind and your heart's racing and there's guns and all this stuff, right? That hasn't happened in here yet. It's very slow. We don't have just one main character. We're not just following the chief inspector. We are seeing perspectives from a few of the different residents of this community of Three Pines. But the inspector guy, Gamache, is very methodical, thoughtful, very much sit back and listen to what people are saying. He is not narcissistic or arrogant, full of himself. He is very humble and he knows he's good at his job, but he's good at his job because he builds up his fellow detectives and the people on his team. He listens to their ideas. Everyone has a place at the table, right? And he sits back and he listens to the suspects and he sets up a town meeting kind of thing to have everyone talk about the murder and the way it happened, because she was actually shot with a bow and arrow, and that's obviously very uncommon and a very specific way of hunting and stuff that is a little bit more specialized. So he wanted to hear what people thought, because a few of the people in town are part of like an archery club and they're talking about like old bows that you would see in Robin Hood kind of thing versus new bows, and who goes bow hunting anymore, and could you kill somebody accidentally like this? How hard is it to get a perfect shot in? Stuff like that, right? But he's listening to the whole town and asking everybody who showed up at the town hall, what was Jane like? Did you like Jane? Did she have any enemies? Did you see her fighting with anybody? Is there anybody you can think of that would want to see her harmed? And he's not just talking to like her direct friends or whatever, but just everyone in the community and listening to everybody. From a scene that just happened here that I can't talk about because it'd be spoilers, he has very strong convictions too. He's not one of those cops that is like, if somebody confesses, I don't care if they did it or not. I don't care their reasons for confessing, whatever. I'm gonna go with my gut and where the evidence is leading me, not just looking to close the case and be like, yeah, we solved another one. Good job, guys. Let's go. And we see him mentoring another younger police officer, and we see his like kind of second in command that he's mentored, and we get a little bit of his perspective. His name is Jean-Guy or Guy. He's in a little bit more of a senior position now, but he was mentored by Gamache, and you get his perspective as well and what he thinks of Gamache and how he's treating this new young detective that's coming in. And he's like, she's not very good at this job, but Gamache is giving her like way too much credit kind of thing. And we're just kind of seeing their thought process. We're seeing everyone's kind of thought processes and what they're thinking about the crime and the people that they are dealing with and interacting with. So it's kind of cool with Michael Connelly and the Bosch series. Specifically, those are like the main detective stories I read. It was a lot of, you get Bosch's perspective and that's it. You're just hearing the story from his one point of view. Yeah, it's kind of cool to just get more perspectives that way. And there's no chapter like chapter 1 is Gamache's perspective. Chapter 2 is Jean-Guy's perspective. Chapter 3 is Clara's perspective. Jane was like one of her best friends. But we don't have one chapter that is just Clara's perspective. It goes between perspectives. You'll have the beginning of the chapter, 3 or 4 paragraphs that are Clara talking, and then she's interacting with her husband Peter, and then she'll like ask him a question, and then as he's answering, you're going into his perspective. So that's really cool too. I love the flow of that. And the reason why I picked this up in the first place, like last year, the year before, is because this is becoming a TV show, and I wanted to know if I liked it. Will I continue in this series? I think I would if I didn't have so much else I wanted to read, but I really do want to check out the show for it. Anyways, I will talk to you later. So as part of my 5 Canadian books that I wanted to read for Canada Day and to kick off my celebration vlogs, I read From the Ashes by Jessie Thistle. I actually ended up listening to this as an audiobook off of Everand, and it is narrated by Jessie Thistle himself. So this is a Métis memoir, my story of being Métis, homeless, and finding my way. So Jessie Thistle grew up in Ontario. His little bio in the back here, it says that he is Métis Cree from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and he now lives in Hamilton, Ontario. In the book, he talks about growing up in Toronto, Ontario. There is so much to highlight and note and tab up. I just haven't had the time to do it yet. This is as far as I've gotten. Most people choose not to rate memoirs because whether it is poorly written or not, this is still somebody's story. This is still their experience. I believe that this was a well-written memoir. I think it's told in a fairly linear fashion, starting when he's younger to growing up to the time that this book was written, where I do tend to find some memoirs jump around a lot, and it can be hard to keep track of where in time they are on the timeline of their life, of their story. This book deals heavily with addiction, drugs, and alcohol, the all too common familiar story. Trigger warnings for abandonment from both parents. Spending a little bit of time in foster care, but that wasn't a huge part of the story. He grew up with his dad's parents, raised him. Once they found out him and his brothers were in the foster care system, they took custody of him and his brothers. But trigger warnings for drug and alcohol addiction and abuse. The stories he tells in this, they're shocking, heartbreaking, and unfortunately all too real and common. He talks about his dad not having enough money. Well, his dad would spend the money on drugs, and then they would go and beg for money, for food, for whatever. They'd go stand outside the grocery store. Jesse was the baby of 3, and he would basically use the boys as a guilt trip for people walking by saying like, my kids are hungry, can you spare some change? The chapters don't have any numbers on them, but this chapter called Trash Pandas, the dad is taking them out to show them basically how to beg for food. And at this point, Jesse is about 3 years old, and his oldest brother's like 5. "Excuse me, sir," Dad said. "I was wondering if you had some spare change. I got 3 kids and they haven't eaten today." Dad sounded polite as he motioned over at us, and we stood, hands out with big eyes, just like Dad taught us. We'd really appreciate anything. The man peeled his trench coat open, searched his pockets, and shrugged. "Sorry, fella. Don't have change to spare." He moved past us and entered the store. The entrance bell rang. It was a sound that meant defeat and more begging. I watched through the window as he bought milk and bread. He got some change back. When he came out, I ran over and tugged his leg, trying to make his quarters and dimes jingle in his pocket, to let him know I knew he had change. He kicked me away. "You should be ashamed," he said to my dad. "F you," Dad fired back and flicked his cigarette in the man's direction. Dad was shivering. Josh sighed, and Jerry wrapped his arms around Josh in a bear hug and squeezed until Josh laughed and begged him to stop. Dad was busy searching the sidewalk and found a half-smoked butt near a trash bin. And then they talk about finding food in a dumpster and eating food from a trash can. A couple of things were sad. Sad is not even the right word. There were a few things in this that were just so heartbreaking about this father standing there teaching his 5 and 4 and 3-year-old how to beg for food because he couldn't be bothered to pick up anything. He spent all of the money on drugs. There's even a scene in the book where he watches, at 3 years old, watches his dad put a belt on his arm and inject something and pass out in the bathroom on the toilet. Or not on the toilet, but at the toilet. And that's just absolutely devastating. There's a few things that really hit me with this specific scene that have really stuck with me. One, how do I treat homeless people when I see them outside of the convenience stores asking for change? If you were that man that they were asking for change, put yourself in that person's shoes. Would you call some kind of child protective services to say, like, there's a man out here with his 3 kids saying that they haven't eaten? Because I know a lot of people's first thought would be that he's using his children to get money and it's just like a scam. Or they don't want to give him money because he's still not going to feed his children and it's going to go to drugs and alcohol, whatever. But at what point do you have an obligation to call somebody because of those children? But also, I can't picture myself like kicking that kid off and telling the dad you should be ashamed of yourself. I can't see not offering the kids something, even if I choose not to give something to the adult there. So it might not be my place to see this guy standing there with his 3 children begging for food. It might not be my place to say, like, hey, I'll take your 3 kids to my house and they can spend the weekend with me and my kids and I'll just feed them. That might not be appropriate. That might not be legal. I don't know. But I can contact different services to find out, how can I help these people? What can I do? Instead of just handing over my money to every single person on the street that asks me. I'm not saying you should never give money or food or whatever to people that you are seeing on the street. I'm not saying not to go out and help the homeless people. I'm just saying that there are ways to do it if you are worried about being scammed out of your money, or to make sure that your dollar is being stretched as far as possible and doing the most good that it can. Yeah, that's just one of the scenes from here when he was very, very little that really just stuck with me and was so heartbreaking. That's a hard scene for all of them, for Jesse and his brothers experiencing it, and the dad. That can't feel good either, to know that you have put your kids in that situation. It's not like the dad is proud of it. He's an addict and he has his own struggles and his own demons to work through. What he's doing isn't right, but he is also not well. This is a very hard story about the realities of addiction and generational trauma. I want to say like generational curses, like the father being an alcoholic and drug addict and passing that down to his children, especially Jesse. And his one brother was very proud to be Métis. Jesse was kind of ashamed of it at times, especially when he was younger and not fully understanding his heritage, or just seeing other kids kind of make fun of Indians. And he actually pretended to be Italian, I believe it was, at one point. And he was like, no, I'm not native. I don't know what you're talking about. But his brother was very much learning about the culture and learning to drum and wearing like moccasins and embracing the Métis culture. And Jesse was ashamed of it. And just his self-discovery and learning who he is and about his heritage and what it means to be Métis, and going from being ashamed of it and hiding who you are to embracing it and writing a #1 national bestseller, the Kobo Emerging Writer Prize winner, and 2020 selection Canada Reads. Yeah, like that's incredible, and what a great legacy to pass down to the younger Métis and other Indigenous peoples who are seeking their identity as well and healing from their past traumas and their familial trauma and generational trauma, all of this. What a great and powerful story of healing and finding my way. So I highly recommend this if you are looking for an Indigenous, Métis, specifically Canadian memoir. This is one worth picking up. And like I said, Jesse reads the audiobook himself. It's always nice to hear a memoir read in the author's own voice. It was really well done. I recommend it, physical or audio. Now, today is June 29th, and tomorrow is the last day of June, and then I gotta get this vlog up. So I'm gonna go edit this part, and tomorrow I'm going to finish off reading Ducks and talk about ducks with you and get this out on time. I will see you tomorrow. Today is June 30th, and I need to get this vlog up. And I don't think I'm going to be able to finish my book. I still have this much left of this graphic novel. So I'm not quite halfway through. I'm on page one. No, I'm not on page 158. I'm a little bit further. That's just where the book opened. I'm on page 166. And this is about 430 pages long. I am going to tell you my thoughts on this so far and do a bit of a wrap up so I can get this vlog out on time. So let me just go through these few tabs. I just decided to start tabbing everything I saw that I wanted to comment on. This takes place in 2005. So I was already mentioning how there was a boom in Fort McMurray, and a lot of people who were really struggling, especially in the East Coast, came to Fort McMurray to make the money because the fishing industries and everything back east that people were relying on for generations was not enough anymore. So everyone came to Fort McMurray and was like, we can make all the money. So first tab I put in was about the shift work here, which is ridiculous, honestly. Here she is sitting down talking to somebody to get on site at a job. She's going out to be a tool crib attendant. So there's these places out on site that if you're working and you need a certain tool or some kind of equipment like gloves or a hard hat, you would go to the tool crib and request those things and they go and grab it for you. Usually women have those jobs and they pay decently. So the person is telling Kate what the job would entail. 6 days on, 6 days off, 12-hour shifts. Usually there are plenty of shifts to pick up in between. The shifts are split between day and night. And she's questioning, like, split? You'll get used to it. And then she goes through all the different things that you need to go work on site. The shift split is people work 6 days on, 6 days off. So it's 3 days, 3 nights, 6 off. And I always thought that was crazy to do split shifts where half your shift is days and half your shift is nights. That is so hard on your body. It's one thing to work just nights and then your body gets into a routine of I'm up during the night and I'm sleeping during the day. But going 3 days, 3 nights, like that's just crazy. And then you have 6 off and then have to adjust to that and then go back to work again. My husband doesn't work night shift. I don't allow that. That's a big no in our house. My husband now, he got a new job in 2022. The shift is all over the place. It's so annoying. You protect me from 9-year-olds. Yeah, good girls. I don't need to worry with my husband being gone for the weekend. I'm safe. But he's working like 11 on, 3 off, or 12 on, 2 off. It's too much. It's too many days in a row, not enough days off. So she's started work now, doing the split shift, and just the whole look on her face, right? Whoa. Here, the guy's like, gets his tool, he's like, thanks, she's bye. And the other person working with her is like, what's with you? I'm not with it yet. I never get used to the switch between day and night shifts. Well, I don't know what to tell you. It's okay, I'll just drink coffee till I explode. There you go. And that's basically the attitude. Just, yeah, that's your work shift, deal with it. So, especially in 2005, it was like 90 men to 10 women. And a lot of young single people here in town and in the camps, and you know, you're lonely, you want to go on dates, whatever. So slim pickings for the guys. So especially when a new woman shows up, they all want to check her out. Who's this new girl? She's talking to the other lady. Kate is 22 here and the lady she's working with is around 40. Hey, you know this guy Radar? He's been asking about showing me around. But I don't know. Can you tell him I can't? He knows you're above me if he asks. And she's just like, whatever. And then the Radar guy says, how are my favorite girls now? Is that young one in today? Katie? I was wondering if I could steal her away for a little bit. Oh. And she's like, clearly, like, no, I don't want to do this. Please, I'm asking you to tell him I can't go. The lady says, sure, Radar, just have her back soon. And she's like, WTH, really? I asked you, please don't do this. So you can get tours around the sites here, and she works there, so she's cleared to go on this tour. So he's driving her around, showing her all the stuff, right? There's actually buffalo out there that you can go see. He parks wherever, and you can see like how close they are to the fence. I haven't seen them out there. And then he's like, hope you had fun, drops her back off at the tool crib. And the lady she's working with, the older lady, is like, how was that? And she's like, I don't know, Laura, what that was. Hey, why did you tell him I was free? He seems to really like you. Does he? I wish I was still young, ha ha ha. But, okay, I'm not a effing idiot. I know men outnumber women here by far. But this kind of attention, what am I supposed to do? This never happened before I came here, especially not out of nowhere like it does now. You're a nice looking girl. I'm not explaining this well. I don't know how to deal with it. That guy is like 40. It's like not even about me. Hey, 40 isn't old. All you need here is to be a woman. You stick out and that's all it takes. and someone thinks they like you. But that doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel like I'm not even a person. But how can I say that? And then she goes on and says, I don't know how to handle these guys. And Laura is like, I think that's pretty cynical. What's the harm in giving him a chance? And that's totally the attitude there. Like, what are you bitching about? You have the chance to hook up with this cute guy, even though he's 40. It's a paper bag thing hanging out of my recycling, making all that noise. Yeah, that's totally attitude. What are you complaining about? You're getting attention from a guy. Be grateful for it, basically. It's not all bad, though. There's good in every situation, and she's there for Christmas working, doesn't have the money to go back home, and the one guy comes in, and she's like, what can I do for you? He's like, I don't need nothing, I just came to give you this. And a lot of guys will come in because it's like minus 45 outside, and they just want to warm up for a minute. He's like, the wife made these. He says, I says to her, there's a poor young thing from down home by herself for Christmas. She said that won't do, so there you have it. And gave her some cookies or something. Yeah, like it's just a sweet little Christmas moment for her as she's there alone at Christmas time. I think it's her first year being away from home and at this job. And then she's talking about moving to camp, and the guy that she is talking to is just telling her how it's room and board, nothing fancy. Out there, you don't come home to regular life every night like here. That changes a person. There's not so much to hold on to. Keep your head straight, find your people. And the people who work in camp, they fly in and fly out. They don't even live here. They call it the shadow population. They don't have anything that's grounding them here. They're just there to make the money kind of thing. Now, Fort McMurray is much more of a settled area, and a lot more guys have brought up their families here and they have wives and children. It's becoming much more of a family town than it was in 2005, and it was just a worker town where these transient people were coming and going and just here for the money. Now people are here to live and put down roots. And then she's getting a ride in a taxi up to the camp, and she's talking to the taxi driver and says, the camps are the shadow population. They live here, but they don't live here. They fly home on days off. And she says, not me. I'm going to work 12 days on and 2 days off. So you live here. I'm going to live in the camp. You don't pay rent there. And he tells her, you be careful, young girl. You live here. They don't. Do you know how people treat a place where they don't live? Fort McMurray is a town. I have young children there. People say bad things about Fort McMurray, but it is the crazy men in the camps. So true. So I've already been talking for over half an hour now, and I just wanted to quickly flip through these tabs, but I have a lot to say apparently. So I'm gonna do this really fast. This guy comes and is talking to her about somebody who was coked out of his mind working on the crane with the ball on it, and it snapped like a wrecking ball, and it snapped and went flying. No one died, amazingly. And just talking about, obviously this guy got fired. And she says, you're joking. Oh my, are there a lot of guys here on cocaine? Are there a lot of... And then he's just laughing at her yeah, obviously. If you want to pass the piss test, you can't smoke weed. That stays in your system forever. But cocaine is out the next day. Everyone is on that. Anyway, that guy is fired. Working day, night shift, working 12 plus hours a day, everything like that. They need the cocaine to do their work. And then at one point, because you don't go into town at all when you're in camp, but you can leave. You're not stuck there, but it's more than an hour-long drive depending on what camp you're at. And these guys are like, hey, you want to come into town? We need a designated driver. And she's like, sure, I need to stop at Shoppers, whatever. But he's like, okay, we're going to the Rippers, which is the strippers. And she is sitting there with her back up against a pole with her legs spread, completely naked except for some boots on. I'll show you that, completely open. And she's like, what is this? And the guy's like, it's a game. They just throw coins at her vagina while she sits there. Yeah, but only $2 coins, and there's $50 in a roll. They make a killing. And then the lady uses a magnet afterwards to pick up all the toonies. I wonder why she wrote $2 coins and not a toonie. And then someone's like, what's wrong with making a bunch of money? And she's like, I'm not against strip clubs. I'm here, but I'm confused by this game. And then this story here, people said that story is just to scare people, but my husband has talked about this. I heard of boys getting kicked out because they heat the coins with a lighter first to burn her lady parts, but my husband said it's to get it to stick to the skin, just anywhere on the body. That's horrible. It's one thing to dance and make money. It's another thing to have guys just throwing heated metal at your body because it's funny. Disgusting. And then the one guy that asked her to come and said, it's good you're here though. They're friendlier when a girl is at the table. So knowing that they're in mixed company makes them be nicer to the strippers. That's it. I'm wrapping this up for now. I need to go get my nails done and then come back and edit this whole Canadian vlog. Get it up for tomorrow for Canada Day. Cheers. Happy Canada Day. It is currently 12:20 a.m. on July 1st. And I just finished editing the last little bit talking about ducks. And now I am just going to do this wrap up really quickly here and edit this. And then right now, without this clip in, my video is sitting at 1 hour, 14 minutes and 29.18 seconds. I want this to be under an hour long, so we'll see. Thank you for being here. If you have made it this far, please comment down below the leaf emoji. I just went on YouTube and they have several different ones. Pick the orangish one that looks most like the maple leaf for Canada. And you can also leave some sort of emoji celebrating my 5th YouTube anniversary. Balloons, cake, presents, little party hat guy, whatever it is that feels like celebration to you. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me over the past few months. I started reading these books in April, and I'm really glad I have been able to kick off these 5 videos with reading Canadian books and celebrating where I'm from and traveling coast to coast through my reads. Thank you so very much for being here. Tomorrow is my 2nd video out of 5, and it is the mid-year freakout tag, so watch for that one. And if you have read any Canadian books or authors, comment down below your favorites, assuming you have found something that you like. And I'll see you tomorrow for my mid-year freakout, and coming up in a few more videos this month that I'm very excited about. Thank you again, as always. Bye!